She was only supposed to clean the floors, serve the food, and stay invisible. At least, that's what the wealthy family believed. But when a millionaire sneered and declared she wasn't worthy to dance, something far greater than pride was at stake. In a single moment, the room turned into a stage of humiliation, power, and prejudice. Yet what no one knew, what no one expected, was that the maid they mocked carried a secret that would leave them stunned. How could a single waltz shatter arrogance and rewrite the meaning of dignity? Her name was Lillian, a young black woman who worked tirelessly as a maid in the home of a wealthy family. Most days began before dawn, polishing silver, scrubbing floors, and ensuring every corner gleamed to perfection. Though her body ached, she carried herself with quiet dignity, knowing her worth wasn't defined by the uniform she wore. Away from the mansion, her life was simple but full of unspoken strength. She lived in a modest apartment, often humming softly to herself as she cooked meals or folded clothes. What many didn't see, what no one in that grand estate could imagine, was her hidden passion. Every evening, after hours of cleaning, she would push the furniture aside and let music fill the room. Her feet moved with grace, her posture sharpened with confidence, and for a brief moment the world around her faded. She wasn't just a maid, she was a dancer, one who had once trained and dreamed of competing on grand stages. But those dreams had been buried under the weight of survival, hidden away from a society that rarely gave women like her the chance to shine. Still, the rhythm never left her, and the fire inside remained unshaken. On the night of the grand ball, where guests would arrive in shimmering gowns and tailored suits, Lillian's world was about to collide with theirs in a way no one expected. She thought she was only there to serve, but the room was about to reveal a cruel test, and with it, an opportunity that could no longer stay hidden. The night of the ball shimmered with chandeliers, crystal glasses, and the hum of violins. Guests in glittering gowns swept across the polished floors, their laughter carrying the arrogance of power. Lillian moved quietly among them, balancing trays and bowing her head, careful to stay invisible. But invisibility is fragile. One misstep, one glance too long, and suddenly all eyes were on her. It started with a whisper. A wealthy guest chuckled, pointing to her as she passed. Another joined in, their voices laced with mockery, the kind that stripped dignity in a single breath. To them, she wasn't a woman. She wasn't a person with dreams. She was just the help. And in their eyes, the help had no place near the grandeur of their waltz. The host, a millionaire with a smirk sharpened by entitlement, raised his glass and made a show of it. "If she thinks she belongs in this hall," he declared to the crowd, "let her dance the waltz. Win, and she earns a place at the table. Lose, and she remembers where she came from." The room erupted in cruel laughter, their polished shoes clicking against marble as they cleared the floor. Lillian's heart pounded. She had been ordered to serve, not to dance. Yet here she was, pushed into the center, their eyes piercing her like daggers. It wasn't just a game, it was humiliation disguised as entertainment. To them, it was inconceivable that a black maid could hold grace, let alone mastery, in something reserved for their kind of elegance. The music began. The violins sang, but under their notes was the thrum of prejudice, a beat of cruelty that threatened to drown her. Every second, her mind screamed with memories of rejection, of doors closed, of voices telling her she wasn't enough, of years spent hiding her gift because the world refused to see her. The guests leaned forward, waiting for her to stumble, waiting for her to fail. Some covered their smirks with gloved hands, others whispered wagers, as though her dignity were a game of chance. The pressure mounted, but beneath the sting of their stares, another fire stirred. Because they didn't know her story. They didn't know the hours she had spent in shadows, perfecting each turn, each step, each rhythm. They didn't know the championships she had once fought for, the trophies hidden in a box back home, reminders of who she truly was. They only saw a maid, but soon they would see more. As she took her first step, the ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Every eye followed her, every sneer sharpened. But inside, her heartbeat aligned with the music, steady, unbreakable. She would not give them the satisfaction of breaking her. The tension was suffocating. One wrong move, and the jeers would echo louder than any violin. But if she could hold her ground, if she could remind herself of the champion within, she just might turn their cruelty into disbelief. The waltz had only begun, but already the balance of power was shifting. And as the room watched, not yet realizing what was coming, one truth became clear. The dance would no longer belong to them. The violins swelled, their notes slicing through the silence as Lillian spun across the ballroom floor. At first the guests laughed, mocking, sneering, expecting her to trip and falter, but as her steps grew sharper, her turns cleaner, the laughter began to fade. Whispers replaced it. Then silence. Each movement carried more than grace. It carried years of pain, rejection, and resilience. Her body told a story the millionaires could never understand, one etched into her bones by struggle and survival. She wasn't just dancing. She was defying every label, every sneer, every attempt to keep her small. But the host couldn't bear it. The same man who had mocked her, who thought humiliation would break her, now watched in disbelief as the room leaned toward her instead of him. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched. In his world, a maid was never supposed to outshine him, never supposed to hold power in her own hands. Desperation turned to cruelty. He stepped forward, cutting into her path, trying to throw her off balance. Enough, his glare seemed to say. But Lillian didn't stumble. She glided past him, rising higher with every step, her confidence burning brighter than the chandelier above them. The crowd held its breath. They were no longer spectators of mockery. They were witnesses to revelation. And as the final notes of the waltz rang out, Lillian ended not with a bow of submission, but with a lift of her chin, standing tall in the very place they tried to shame her. In that moment, the room was split. Some clapped hesitantly, ashamed of their own doubt. Others stared, their arrogance cracked wide open. And the millionaire? He could only seethe, realizing his attempt to degrade her had done the opposite. Because what they had all just seen wasn't a maid fumbling in a borrowed spotlight. It was a champion reclaiming her stage. And the question hung heavy in the silence. What happens when the truth can no longer be ignored? The ballroom never looked the same after that night. Lillian left the floor, not as the servant they had ridiculed, but as the woman who had forced them to see what they tried so hard to ignore. She didn't need their applause, though some gave it reluctantly, others silently ashamed. Her victory wasn't in their claps. It was in reclaiming her dignity, in proving that no label, no stereotype, no cruel laughter could erase the truth of who she was. But the sting of the evening lingered. For beneath the beauty of her dance was a darker truth. She had only been given the chance to shine because they thought it would break her. That's the cruelty of racism. It doesn't just deny opportunity, it weaponizes humiliation. And yet, when forced into that spotlight, she turned their trap into a moment of undeniable power. For Lillian, the dance ended, but the lesson carried on. She returned to her modest life, her trophies still tucked away, but now her head a little higher, her spirit unshaken. She knew that while one night had changed their perception, the world outside still carried the same prejudice, the same harsh judgments waiting to tear others down. Her story wasn't an ending, it was a reminder. Because this isn't just about one maid in one ballroom. It's about every person told they don't belong, every voice silenced before it could be heard, every dream dismissed before it had a chance to rise. Racism doesn't always come in shouts or violence. Sometimes it's the smirk at a dinner table, the joke at someone else's expense, the assumption that worth is tied to wealth, skin, or status. And so we're left with a question. How many more Lillians must stand in the fire before the world stops pretending it doesn't exist? This was her story, but it's also ours to carry forward. If it moved you, share it, talk about it, reflect on it, because silence has never ended injustice, and only truth has the power to change what we see.